Yes, Pedya. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. NFL Week 4 is officially here, and with another week of NFL football comes another edition of the NFL Oracle. That's right, guys. I am the NFL Oracle. In ancient times, the oracles in ancient Greece gave prophecies, were fortune tellers for the people. And in modern times, my job is to give you guys fortune through sports betting picks. But first, before we dive into all of today's picks, and trust me, guys, I have a ton, please make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. We are on the road to 100,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. We just hit 90,000 today. Claps up for Guy Boston Sports, just hitting 90,000 subscribers. Our goal is to get to 100K before the end of 2024. We still got a few months left. We're 10K away, a little bit less than 10K away, but we need your help if we're going to go ahead and hit that goal. So please make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below. We have a ton of great content here on the channel between NFL, MLB, NBA coming up, WNBA, all that good stuff. Go ahead and check it out. A little housekeeping before we dive into all of today's picks. A quick little recap of how we did last week. Now, we went 6-8 overall last week. Not fantastic. We were actually 6-4 on Sunday. Had a really solid Sunday slate, and then we had a horrific Monday night. 0-4 in all of our Monday picks. I made the Cardinals sin of putting the Jaguars in 3 of the 4 bets. And obviously, you guys watched Monday night. They got absolutely crucified. So, rough week. It was a really solid start, finish kind of weak, but still 6-8 overall. I think we can do definitely much better this week. And I actually love the board this week, despite there being a lot of wonky picks. Or wonky games, I should say. Wonky spreads and stuff like that. A lot of weird matchups, some weird lines. But I did find a lot of value in this week's picks. By the way, shout out to Papa_Fish for winning last week's Oracle giveaway. You have been selected to win a free $15 Amazon gift card. We'll be in touch with you to get you that gift card as soon as possible. But all right, guys, new week, new opportunity to go ahead and make some money. I have a ton of picks. We're targeting spreads, unders. We had some teasers. The teasers, we doing 2-1 on teasers last week. We have a few teasers. We got some player props, a ton of great picks to go ahead and share with you guys. No more time to waste. Let's dive right into today's picks. All right, guys, our first of many picks in this NFL Week 4 slate. We're starting off with the Pittsburgh Steelers-Indianapolis Colts game, 1 p.m. kickoff. Our first pick, we're going with the Steelers on the money line here, -125. And go ahead and jump into the outlier screen here, guys. So -125, this is available on multiple sportsbook. The best odds we're getting it for here is on DraftKings here at -125 odds. Pretty solid value there. Now, I was tempted to go ahead and take the Steelers spread. We're going to go ahead and play it safe with the money line here at -125. Look, guys, I just love the Steelers in this matchup. This is the #1 scoring defense in the NFL right now, and this defense is no joke. It is legit. If you go ahead and look at the right side of the screen here, the matchup's insane. You see just averaging 8.7 points per game allowed for the Steelers defense. Really solid defensive performances. Now, they haven't played the best of offenses necessarily through the first weeks, but no matter what, their defense has looked insanely good. First in a lot of key categories here. This defense is so good that no matter who they're playing, the Steelers always kind of have a chance to win because this defense is so legit. There's a lot of data here to present that also provides us with insight into why this pick is solid. In their last 8 games as a favorite straight up, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-2, 75% hit rate. Although Mike Tomlin in his career has been better as an underdog, as a favorite, he's also been really solid of late. Again, the Steelers are 3-0 so far this year. They've looked pretty good, although offensively they have some question marks. There's no questions about this defense. And look, on the Colts side of things, there's a lot of questions surrounding Indianapolis. Like we talked about, guys, the Steelers have the #1 scoring defense in the NFL right now. They're #1 in a lot of key categories defensively. Looking specifically at passing yards allowed and rushing yards allowed, the Steelers are the 5th best pass defense in the NFL, giving up just 157.7 passing yards per game. And they are the tied for the 2nd best rushing defense in the NFL, giving up 71.3 rushing yards per game. Basically, guys, in a nutshell, I just don't think the Colts offense will be able to hang with this Steelers defense. It's a really bad matchup for an Indianapolis team that's not all that good. The Colts are 1-2, although they really should probably be 0-3. That game last week versus the Bears, if any other coach but Matt Eberflus was coaching, probably the Colts lose that game. I feel like that was more of the Bears choked it than the Colts won it. Some really bad performances from them. And Anthony Richardson, who I think is going to be a pretty decent quarterback, a lot of potential there. He's very raw, and there's a lot of learning that he still needs to do. A lot of he reminds me a lot, and we talked about this on H2H. If you haven't seen H2H, our Week 4 video came out earlier this week. Go ahead and check that out. He reminds me a lot of a rookie year Josh Allen, just maybe not as good in terms of like he can make these plays that make your jaws drop to the floor, and it's crazy. But he also makes some really boneheaded decisions. The interception he threw last week versus the Bears, where he threw right into 3 defenders, some really stupid decision making from him, and that I think is a really good spot to bet against them, to fade them there in this matchup. This is a Steelers defense that's really good with takeaways as well. They're tied for 6th in the NFL in turnovers, forcing 1.7 turnovers per game. So this is a Steelers defense that forces a lot of turnovers, and this is Anthony Richardson, who has already thrown 6 interceptions in 3 games. Really bad spot for him against a defense that's absolutely going to put pressure on them. And look, how I think this game is going to go, I think the Steelers' run defense, which we already talked about, is tied for the 2nd best run defense in the NFL. They're going to do the exact same thing they did last week versus the Chargers, which is take away the run game and force you to beat them through the air. Now, at least for the Chargers, you had Justin Herbert until he went out with an injury in that game. Here, I just don't think if you're the Colts, you can be too comfortable with Anthony Richardson having to throw the ball a lot, because he's going to have to throw the ball a lot in this game. The Steelers are going to, I think, shut down Jonathan Taylor to a degree. He's a superstar. You never can completely shut him down. But I do think the Steelers' run defense is good enough against the Colts offensive line that is solid, but not as good as it usually is. I think they should be able to stop the run, or at least slow the run down, which is going to force the Colts to rely on their young, inexperienced, and kind of shaky quarterback to go ahead and throw the ball a lot, which is what the Steelers want precisely. So I really like the spot there for the Steelers. And offensively, this is the weakest defense that Pittsburgh has played so far this season. The Colts defense, not bad in any key metrics, but they're 21st in passing yards allowed, and actually, they are really bad in some key metrics. 21st in passing yards allowed, giving up 219 yards per game. But most importantly, they're 32nd in rushing yards allowed, giving up 179 rushing yards per game. That's going up against the Steelers offense that's 12th in the NFL right now in rushing yards, 130.7 rushing yards per game. So I can go on and on. I can ramble for minutes and hours really about why I like this spot, but really what it comes down to is it's a really bad matchup here for the Indianapolis Colts. I just don't like the spot here. I think Anthony Richardson's going to be out of his element. Now, they are at home, which is the one advantage they do have here, but the Colts defense also, again, without DeForest Buckner, this defensive line, not great to begin with, but then you take DeForest Buckner out of it. They're not going to be able to put pressure on Justin Fields. This is the first matchup all season long where Fields is going to have time to sit back and throw. The corners, I mean, overall, this Colts defense is not that good. It's by far the weakest defense the Steelers have played thus far. I think Justin Fields in the Steelers offense can take some advantage of this matchup. And again, the Steelers defense is so good, it should win this game just with the defense alone. But I do think Justin Fields will probably have his best game as a Steeler yet in this matchup. I love him. I think they should be a bigger favorite than they actually are. It's a blessing we're getting the line at where it is. We'll take the money line here, minus 125. And no fear, guys, all the picks we put in the pinned comment down below, so it'll make it very easy to follow along. I'll also make sure to put in timestamps for each game that we're going to follow, so you guys can go ahead and easily jump through game to game to find the picks that you like. All right, guys, I actually have 2 more picks to go ahead and share within this Steelers-Colts game. A couple of player props here. My first player prop of today's video, my second pick overall of the slate. We're going to go with Pat Freiermuth of the Steelers over 3.5 receptions. There's a plus money play on every sports book. It gets available on Bet365 and BetMGM for better odds, but DraftKings still probably your best bet here at plus 120 odds, although it is also available on Teasers and FanDuel for varying odds. And the data, now the last 10 game data going back to last season, again, not fantastic, but looking at this year so far, a 100% hit rate for Pat Freiermuth this season. All 3 games this year, he's cashed this over of 3.5 receptions for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously the 100% hit rate looks really good for us with this prop. Along with that, Pat Freiermuth currently has the second highest target share on the Steelers. Looking down below at the target share here, an 18.3% target share for Pat Freiermuth this season. Only George Pickens has more targets in this Steelers offense. And again, this is the weakest defense they've faced so far this season. I expect that Justin Fields can have some success throwing the football. And if that's the case, I think Pat Freiermuth is a really good target here for the Steelers in this matchup. Again, the Colts overall, they are bottom half of the league, 21st in the NFL in passing yards allowed, giving up 219 yards per game. So teams can have a little success throwing the football here, but it's a pretty good matchup as well versus the tight end. You see overall in receptions allowed, the Colts bottom 10 in the league, 23rd, giving up 23 receptions per game to opposing teams. But specifically versus the tight end position, bottom 4 in the NFL, 29th in the league, giving up 6.3 receptions per game to opposing tight ends. You saw Cole Kmet last week, had a really solid game for the Bears against this Colts defense. The Colts defense giving up a ton of catches to opposing tight ends. So really solid spot here for plus money value too. He's hit it in all 3 games thus far. I don't see why he wouldn't do it again in a matchup that kind of leaves him open to catch maybe even more than 4 passes. Love the spot here for Freiermuth. All right, guys, and our last pick from this Steelers-Colts game. We're finally going to move on from this game after this one, but I had to go ahead and take this. We're going Anthony Richardson here, over half an interception. You can get that from -135 on Bet365. Available for varying odds in almost every sports book. For the major ones, the ones that are available in most states, FanDuel -140, also available at DraftKings -155. I know betting this one straight up may not be the most attractive thing due to the odds, but the value is there. It's a great pick to go ahead and throw in a parlay. If you're looking to add an extra leg in your player prop parlay or parlay in general, this Richardson prop, pretty solid spot. Over half an interception. He's cashed in all 4 games this season, including each of his last 2 games being multiple interception games. Again, Richardson leads the league in interceptions through the first 3 weeks, averaging 2 picks per game. And like we talked about already, the Steelers defense is legit. This is the 5th best passing defense in the NFL right now, giving up just 157.7 passing yards per game. So this defense is really hard to pass on. And the turnovers, we talked about the turnovers per game, tied for 6th in the NFL, giving up 1.7 turnovers per game, or forcing 1.7 turnovers per game, I should say. And look at the matchup here. The Steelers are currently 4th in the NFL in terms of interceptions forced. They're forcing 1.3 interceptions per game. That's the 4th best mark in the NFL through the first 3 weeks. So they're forcing a lot of turnovers. You have a quarterback here who leads the league in turnovers. It makes sense. The matchup is perfect. And again, the game plan for Pittsburgh in this game is probably going to be a similar one that we saw last week, where they're going to take away the run, force Richardson to sit in the pocket and throw. And if he's throwing a lot, I could see probably a multiple interception game, but we're going to go ahead and take the over half interception here. Again, depending where you get it, -135 to -150 odds. You can bet it straight up. You just have to put a little bit more money down, maybe an extra unit on it. But it's also a great parlay pick. So I love this pick. I had to share it with you guys because, I think in a couple weeks, if he keeps this trend up, this will start being like a -200 prop, honestly. So really solid value here. All right, next up, guys, our 4th pick in today's slate. I'm a little bit of a glutton for punishment here. I'm targeting the Jaguars-Texans game, 1 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Jaguars here, +6. It's from -103 on DraftKings, also available on multiple other sportsbooks for varying odds. And look, coming off that Monday night disaster against the Buffalo Bills, I find it hard to believe that a lot of people would want to bet this Jaguars team right now, and I get it. I don't feel 100% great about taking them here, but I just feel like you have to take them. Usually, statistically speaking, when a team comes off a blowout like the Jaguars did last week, they're bound to do better in the next week. Doug Peterson, everybody involved there in Jacksonville is now actively playing, coaching, whatever, for their jobs. And I do think they need this, at least to keep this game close, if not win it outright. I don't think they're going to win it outright, but to keep this game within 6 points, I think is very possible for the Jaguars. From a betting standpoint, obviously the public's probably going to be really high on the Texans here. And actually, we can go ahead and look at the betting data here. You see the money line, 94% of all bets are coming on Houston, 86% of the money on the Texans. When it comes to the spread, 71% of all bets are on Houston, but just 51% of the money on the Texans. What that tells us is the sharp side here seems to be Jacksonville. 29% of all bets are currently on the Jaguars, yet 49% of the money is on Jacksonville on the spread of +6. So it seems like the sharp side here is probably the Jaguars at +6. And like I said, Vegas never loses. It just makes a ton of sense here. The public's going to be all over Houston. No one wants to put money on this Jaguars team, but it's a pretty good spot to go ahead and bet them here. It's nearly even odds if you get it on DraftKings. You're getting an almost even pick there at +6. Now, they've covered this +6 line in both of their first 2 games. Obviously, we know the Bills game, they got blown out, but the first 2 games were relatively close ones. And yeah, the Jaguars are just 2-7 against the spread in their last 9 games. It's not great, but they've actually, again, they covered this +6 line in their 2 of their first 3 games. And that first game versus Miami was when they were fully healthy with Tua and everybody. That wasn't the Skylar Thompson Dolphins. And on the flip side here, Houston's not been that great through the first 2 weeks. They're actually 2-1. They pushed this line week 2 versus the Bears. But the Texans have not been impressive either this year. Yes, they are 2-1, but look at their wins. A 2-point win over a Colts team that I just talked about in the last pick. Didn't like them that much. Then they barely beat the Bears by 6. If Chicago was slightly better, the Texans should have lost that game. The Bears had the ball down 6 last drive of the game and just couldn't do anything with it. So again, not really great wins for Houston. Then they got blown up by Minnesota last week, 34-7. So this is a Texans team that, although they are 2-1 on the record, have not looked great in their own right this year. And the last time these 2 teams played, it was a close one back in November of last season. The Jaguars, that game was close, 24-21. Jacksonville actually won that game by 3 there. That win for the Jaguars was actually the last time they kind of were a good team. From that point on, actually, you can go ahead and look. From that win, that that Texans win back on November 26th of last year was kind of the beginning of the end. From that point on, you see that 2-7 cover streak against the spread. It starts after that Texans game, right? You look at that 10-game stretch dating back from the Bengals game on December 4th of last year all the way through, obviously, this Monday Night Football loss to Buffalo. That last game versus the Texans was the last time the Jaguars were playing decent football. They're actually covering the +6 line at a pretty decent rate. 6 of their last 10 games, they've been within 6 points. So they don't get blown out too often. I do like Jacksonville here at +6. I do think it's pretty decent value against the Texans team that's still clearly trying to figure things out. There's a lot of urgency in that building in Jacksonville. I would hope there is at least. I just can't take this is probably the last week. If they don't cover this, I won't take them again the rest of the year. I got to take the Jaguars here at +6. I just feel like I have to. I feel like the public's going to be all over Houston. I got to go ahead and fade the public here. By the way, guys, if you liked these picks so far, and all these picks, pretty much all of them are available on DraftKings. We do have a special offer here from our partners at DraftKings to go ahead and make it even easier to bet on these games. That's right, guys. Guy Boston Sports and DraftKings Sportsbooks have officially partnered to bring you this very special offer. If you're a new customer, when you use the link down below in the description, all you got to do is bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. That's right. It's as simple as it sounds. If you're a new customer, use our link down below. Bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Like I said, guys, pretty much all of these picks are available on DraftKings. You see some of the better odds. That last pick, almost even odds, available on DraftKings. You're getting $200 in bonus bets, a ton of free money to go ahead and put back in on these picks and win yourself some more money. You can get your bankroll started here. You can go ahead and get yourself going for the football season. We got a long football season ahead. You can go ahead and win some picks here with this free money. Put yourself in a really good position for the rest of the year. It's very simple. It's free. It's easy. Like I said, you're getting free bets, guys. You can't beat that offer. One more time, use the link down below in the description. Bet $5 as a new customer. Get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Shout out to DraftKings for partnering with us for today's video. All right, guys, getting back to the picks. Our fifth pick in this week's slate. We're targeting the Saints-Falcons game, 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. We're going Falcons here, -2. Buying a little bit of value here. Falcons -2 here for -125 odds on DraftKings. Also available ESPN Bet, Bet365, and BetMGM. And look, guys, I've never been totally sold on the Saints team. Call it a Derek Carr bias, whatever you want to call it. Or Dennis Allen bias even. I've just never really liked the Saints. They had a really hot start. Obviously, a couple of really impressive wins to kick off the season. I just didn't buy it. And obviously, that Eagles game that came back down to earth. And I just don't know if they're going to go back up to the levels they were pre-Eagles game. Now, some of it's not their fault. Some of it is injuries. Their offensive line is decimated, including their starting center, which is a really important part of this team. Their offensive line is decimated. Alvin Kamara looks banged up already. So injuries are already starting to rear their ugly head for this Saints team. And you have a Falcons team who I think is trending in the right direction. Atlanta might be 1-2, but they've had kind of a tough schedule to start the year. They played the 3-0 Steelers in week 1. Then they played the 2-1 Eagles in week 2, and they barely escaped that one. And they played the 3-0 Chiefs in week 3, so a really brutal start to the year for Atlanta. And they've been pretty close in all those games, minus maybe week 1, which is kind of ugly. But each of the last 2 matchups, Atlanta has been with 2 teams that are really solid, 2 teams that are consistent contenders in this league, specifically Kansas City, back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Had it not been for a non-called PI at the end of that game, who knows? It's first and goal on the 1-yard line, and maybe the Falcons walk away with a win. Either, whatever the case may be, Atlanta has been playing better. I think Kirk Cousins is starting to look more comfortable in this Falcons offense. And now you're visiting a Saints team. Actually, it's in Atlanta, so the Falcons are at home hosting this Saints team, and only a 2-point favorite, I just like the Falcons a lot in this spot. Like I said, I don't think this Falcons team is getting its due credit. I know people see the 1-2 record. They see the fact that they've been kind of tight. They've struggled in a lot of their games. But again, they played some really tough competition. Not to say the Saints haven't either, although that week 1 game was versus the Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young, just saying. But I do think that Atlanta is getting better each and every week. I think this is a really solid matchup for them. Look at the head-to-head marks. I mean, these 2 teams obviously split the series last season. The recent trend seems to indicate that the home team wins each of the last 3 meetings between these 2 teams. The home team has won the matchup. Again, I think it's close. I think these 2 teams are closer than I thought they'd be. I give New Orleans some credit. They are still a decent squad. I just think Atlanta's better. This Saints offensive line, is decimated by injuries right now. I think the Falcons defense can take advantage of that. And Derek Carr, when he's under pressure in his career, is usually when he self-destructs. I think that with Matthew Judon and this growing Falcons pass rush with Grady Jarrett and Matthew Judon and the pieces they have in the secondary, I think this Falcons defense can put a lot of pressure on Derek Carr. I think we're going to see a pretty bad Derek Carr game here. I like the Falcons a lot here. From -2, a field goal wins this game. Again, I think that Kirk Cousins, if he even plays just average, this is what he can do for you. He can cover this game. And again, 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins, Very different quarterback from primetime Kirk Cousins. In the 1 p.m. slot in his career, he's been very successful. I like Kirk Cousins here. I'm going to go ahead and back the Falcons against an already injury-riddled Saints team here for -2 points. Pretty decent value. Oh, and one last data point on the Saints-Falcons game, guys. The Saints, although their defense is fifth in the nation in scoring, fifth in the NFL in scoring defense, their passing defense has been pretty suspect. 25th in the NFL in passing yards allowed, giving up 236 yards per game. I could see Kirk Cousins having a pretty good game here. Their run defense is pretty solid, but I think that Kirk Cousins could get some success here in the passing game. All right, guys, keeping things rolling here with the 1 p.m. slate. Just to be a heads up, guys, I'm not going to go through every single game. I'm only going through the games that I find picks that I like in. There are a lot of games I'm going to go ahead and stay away from, like the Eagles-Bucks game, not touching that. A couple other games I want to stay away from because I just don't like the Rams-Bears. A lot of games where I think it's kind of, like I said earlier in the video, a little wonky, a little weird. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the games. And this is the case for every week with the Oracle, the NFL Oracle show. I'm just going to go through the games that I find value. I'm not going to go through every single game and force picks I don't believe in. I'm just giving you guys the picks that I like from this week's NFL slate. And next up, guys, we got Bengals, Panthers, 1 p.m. kickoff in Carolina. I'm going with the Bengals -3.5. We're buying a point down here, which is available from -125 on ESPN and Bet, -127 on DraftKings, also available on FanDuel and BetMGM. This is at 4.5 is the regular line. We're going to go and buy a point down to -3.5 just to play a little safer. Look, I think last week Carolina's big win against the Raiders was really impressive. Andy Dalton came out and was firing all cylinders. I see a lot of people calling for an Andy Dalton revenge game here, going up against his former team, the Bengals. Got to be honest, I love Cincinnati in this game. I love them. The Bengals obviously coming off their Monday Night Football loss to the Commanders. Really tough game because the Bengals offense, and now, again, it's the Commanders defense. Any offense seemingly can come alive against the Commanders defense. But it felt like the Bengals were finally coming alive. Joe Burrow played his best game of the year. The offense was humming. Unfortunately, the defense didn't follow tune. The Bengals might honestly be one of the best 0-3 football teams, or maybe the best 0-3 football team of all time. This team is literally plays away from being 3-0. It's so crazy the difference in what their season could look like. They have a couple more plays go their way. They played all their games tight. All their losses have been one-score games. They almost beat the Chiefs. Again, that Week 1 loss to New England, very embarrassing. Even last week's loss to Washington, pretty embarrassing. But this still is a really good Bengals team, I think. I think this team, playoffs right now seem very unlikely, obviously, with an 0-3 start. But if any team can come back from 0-3 make the playoffs, Cincinnati's one of them. They have too much talent on this team to be written off. And a really good matchup here. The Panthers, I know, again, they came off a really big win last week, versus the Raiders. But this is a Bengals team that can take advantage of a poor matchup. This is the worst scoring defense in the NFL right now in Carolina. They're giving up almost 32 points per game. Right, even in last week's game, they gave up 22 points to an offense that can't even run the football with Gardner Minshew. I like Gardner Minshew, but Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback, the Panthers still gave up 22 points in that game. And speaking of last week's win, I know a lot of people are like, ooh, is this Panthers team? Maybe Bryce Young was holding them back. And to a degree, I think that's true. I still don't think the Panthers are a good football team. Obviously, now Adam Thielen out, so one less weapon for Andy Dalton to have in the offense. Deontay Johnson, maybe they have a big game again this week, but it is Deontay Johnson. I don't know. I just think last week's game was more about the Raiders' issues than it was how good the Panthers are. I think the Raiders, obviously, they beat the Ravens, and everyone kind of was like, ooh, what was that about? I think that was just more the Ravens with their fourth quarter trouble closing games more than it was the Raiders of this good team. I think the Raiders are a bottom, maybe even 5 team in the NFL right now. I don't like this Raiders team much at all. And to make matters worse, they also had injuries in that game. Max Crosby got dinged up. Devontae Adams got banged up in that game. So the Raiders also were hurt as well. I think that was more about the Raiders' problems than it was the Panthers' successes. And so going into this matchup here, I think a lot of people, this spread normally would be like 7 points or 6.5 points. But because the Bengals struggles, mixed with the fact that Carolina is coming off of an impressive win last week, we're getting some pretty decent value here. -3.5. I think the Bengals roll this game, probably win by a touchdown, Again, I could just take them at the -4.5 line for a little more value. Playing it safe, taking them at -3.5, but I think the Bengals should absolutely roll here. Their offense, although overall this season 13th in scoring, again, last week it really started to come alive here. The matchup is just too good to pass up here versus Carolina. So -3.5, pretty solid value. Also, when dealing with backup quarterback games, backup quarterbacks, usually in that first game they start, it's really good, and then in subsequent starts, you see a really quick decline. Normally, it's whether it be not enough game film or, I don't know. It just typically the trend seems to be with backup quarterbacks who start. The first start is usually impressive. They shock some people, and then the subsequent starts usually goes downhill pretty fast. I think that could be the case with Andy Dalton. And one last data point before I finally move on to the next pick. The Panthers are 2-11 straight up in their last 13 games as an underdog. So some data there to also back up the claim that I think the Bengals are going to roll here. All right, guys, next up, we're talking the Vikings-Packers game, 1 p.m. kickoff. We're going with Minnesota +3 here, and it feels like a little bit of a trap line. I was hesitant to take this one, but I just think there's too much. I just don't understand how the Vikings are an underdog here. And normally when stuff like this happens, you should go ahead and fade it because it is usually a trap. The Vikings are 3-0. Their defense looks insane. Sam Darnold's look fantastic, and yet they're a 3-point underdog. I know that's in Green Bay. It's in Lambeau. It's a rivalry game. These division games are always a little weird. But versus the Packers team, that they don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be. Now, I do think the line that the sportsbooks are giving us here is with the intention that Jordan Love's going to start. Honestly, I think it might even be a better matchup for us if Jordan Love does start here. Look, the reason why I'm riding with this guy here is that I think the Vikings defense is legit. Obviously, we look at the numbers here for the Vikings defense. Second best scoring defense. Only the Steelers have a better scoring defense than they do. They're number one in the league in sacks, second in quarterback hits, first in QB hurries. They blitz at an incredibly high rate, but it's successful. They put pressure on the quarterback. They've beaten some really impressive teams too. They beat the Texans with CJ Stroud. They beat the Niners with Brock Purdy, and the Week 1 win versus the Giants and Daniel Jones, not as impressive. But this Vikings team has blown everybody away through the first 3 weeks. I just really love the matchup of this Vikings defense versus this Packers offense. And a Packers offensive line that's been pretty solid so far, but they also haven't really played anybody. Minus the Eagles in Week 1. Granted, that's a good one. But subsequent weeks, they played the Colts, who we've already talked about in this week's video. Don't really love them that much. And the Titans, who are not that good of a team. So they played back-to-back games against bad teams. If Malik Willis plays, this line will jump instantly, I think. If Malik Willis is named the starter, I think the Vikings might turn into a favorite, so you can go ahead and grab this line while you can. I think Malik Willis probably will play. That's my kind of thought process. Even if he doesn't, I still like it because I think Jordan Love, if he plays, coming off of that hurt knee, hasn't played since Week 1. I don't know how healthy he's going to be. The fact that it's even a question that's questionable, it's kind of going to be like a game time decision at this point. Who's going to start? That makes me feel like he's not 100%. And if he's not 100%, going up against this Vikings defense that puts a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, I like the spot. Now, Jordan Love has actually had a lot of success against Flores' defense in the past. He actually succeeds against blitzes pretty well. Pretty high success rate against the blitz. But again, with that knee injury, who knows what he's going to look like? It's going to be maybe a little rusty. He hasn't played in a few weeks. Whoever plays quarterback, I would prefer Malik Willis. I think it's more of a lock if Willis does play. But I do like the match regardless of who plays because, again, Jordan Love I don't think is going to be 100% healthy. That does play to the advantage of this Vikings defense. I know it's in Lambeau. I know it's on the road. 3-point spread, I think Minnesota should be able to keep that close. These guys did split the season series last year, and actually last season when they played in Green Bay back in October, Minnesota did win 24-10. Again, very different circumstances because that was when Kirk Cousins was healthy and playing. So really tough to get a read on what that means if it even has any relevance to this conversation. But the last time they played in Lambeau, the Vikings did win, and they won pretty handily. Again, some other factors there. Jordan Love, that was kind of early year Jordan Love where he wasn't really locked in yet with his offense. I just think there's too much value here on the Vikings at +3 to go ahead and pass up. So give me Vikings here +3. And piggybacking off of that pick, guys, I'm going to go and ride with Aaron Jones here. A little player prop. Aaron Jones in a revenge game, his first game back in Lambeau as a member of the Vikings, over 58.5 rushing yards available on -113 on FanDuel, also available on Bet365 and on Caesars. It's a revenge game. I'm sure Aaron Jones isn't loving the fact that they chose Josh Jacobs over him. I think he's had a really solid year so far with the Vikings. He's cashed the over in 2 out of 3 games so far this year. He had 94 rushing yards in Week 1. He had 102 rushing yards in Week 3. Obviously Week 2, a little bit of a down week there, 32 rushing yards in that game. But across the board, he's averaging 76 rushing yards per game this year. Now, the Packers' run defense is ranked 10th in the NFL right now, which is actually pretty impressive. But I don't know. I think Aaron Jones here, a little extra motivation. The Packers defense is still giving up 105.7 rushing yards per game. All we need here is 59 yards for Aaron Jones to cash the over. I think that's fairly doable here for him. So I like the spot here. I think it's a really solid matchup. Last year, he cashed at a 46% hit rate with the Green Bay Packers. However, he did cash it each of his last 5 games to close out the year last year for Green Bay. And again, look at the last 10 games, where that includes his 3 games with Minnesota. 7 of his last 10 games cashed the over, averaging 87.9 rushing yards per game. So there's still a lot of value here with Aaron Jones, a little on the older side. Seems like the Packers kind of give up on him to go get the younger, maybe more explosive Josh Jacobs, but I think it's a really good spot here for the Aaron Jones revenge game. All right, guys, I know we're going a little long here in the video. We have 2 picks left before we get into the teaser portion of the video. Our next pick might be my favorite pick of today's slate, this week's slate, I should say. Commanders, Cardinals, 4:05 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Cardinals here, -3. Now, the spread is -3.5. We bought half a point down for a little extra value on our side here. -120 on DraftKings, also available at Bet365, ESPN Bet, and BetMGM. I think Arizona at -3 is a pretty surefire bet. Now, the Cardinals have surprised me. They've been better than I thought this year. Obviously, they're coming off of a loss versus the Lions. However, that game was a lot closer than the scoreboard indicates. Arizona was in that ball game for the entire time. A couple of critical referee decisions kind of changed the outcome of that game there. But the Arizona Cardinals were hanging around the entire game versus a Lions team that I think is going to go to the Super Bowl this year. So pretty impressive so far. They obviously blew out the Rams week 1, and then they hung in, and they had a chance to potentially upset the Bills in week 1, or week 2 was that Rams game, excuse me. So through 3 weeks, I've been fairly impressed with this Arizona team. They're 2-1 versus the spread straight up this year, and at this -3 line, only one time they've hit it. Of course, they are 1-2. I know Washington's obviously coming off of that big Monday Night Football win against the Bengals, but I like the Cardinals on the spot. First of all, it is a short week for Washington. They played Monday Night Football, an emotional big-time game versus the Bengals. They now have to come back on a short week and go to Arizona and play this Cardinals team that has a very spicy offense. Now, looking at the Cardinals side of things, they have the 4th highest scoring offense in the NFL, 27.3 points per game. And again, they played the Bills, the Rams, and the Lions. Not exactly an easy schedule to start the year for Arizona. Across the board, their offense looks really solid. They're actually top 10 in rushing. Their passing defense, they're actually 18th. They're actually a little low there. Again, they've had a really bit of a tough schedule to start. Really, guys, what this is all about is I think the Cardinals offense versus this really weak Commanders defense should go ahead and feast. The Commanders, it's been no secret, they've struggled against the pass, 31st in the NFL right now in passing yards, allowed, giving up 255.7 passing yards per game. I think Kyler Murray and this Cardinals offense can go ahead and take advantage of that. They got some weapons there with Marvin Harrison Jr. and everything. I think that Arizona should take advantage and score some points. This is a Cardinals team that this is the easiest game they've played so far this season. Now, you could argue the Rams were. I think this is probably the easiest game they play this year. I think Washington, look at their 2 wins. They beat the Giants in a game that they probably should have lost if the Giants had a kicker. They probably lose that game. And they beat a Bengals team that, although I like them a lot, they're flawed defensively as well. So I'm not sold on the Commanders yet. Again, Jaden Daniels looks awesome. They're 2-1, really impressive. I still don't think this Commanders team is that good. I think they're still probably a year early from being a solid team, a contending team to at least make the playoffs. I think they're a little early to that scene, and 2-1 start is impressive, but I do think Arizona is the better team to side with here. And the Cardinals defensively, they're not actually that bad. They're not good, but they're not that bad. 19th in the league in scoring defense, giving up 21.3 points per game. Their run defense is bottom 12, not great, but their pass defense actually middle of the road, just 200 yards per game. Now, obviously, the Commanders' strength has been running the football, so obviously that 20th ranked run defense is a little concerning there. But I think Arizona's defense is definitely a step up from what the Bengals had, and that game was really close. I like the Cardinals here. I just don't think the Commanders are going to be able to keep up with Kyler Murray in this game. So give me the Cardinals here at -3. Also, by the way, and one last point, insights provided by Outlier, the Washington Commanders are now 2-6, 25% hit rate against the spread in their last 8 games as an underdog. So as an underdog over the last 8 games, has not been great for the Commanders here. Now, obviously, they did cover it on Monday night, so that says something, I guess. But I like the Cardinals here at -3. Now, obviously, I don't do Sunday Night Football picks on this video, guys, because I do my Sunday Night Football videos. It's a separate video on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel. So go ahead and check that out. It'll be out Sunday morning, my Sunday Night Football picks. So our last pick before we move on to the teaser/parlay portion of the video, real quick, we got Monday Night Football, Seahawks, Lions, 8:15 p.m. kickoff. My only Monday night pick, maybe a little scarred from last week, my only Monday night pick. I'm not touching that Dolphins-Titans game. We're going Lions -3 here. I think Detroit, people are starting to sleep on them a little bit. These are 2 teams that are very interesting to me. I think, again, the Lions are my Super Bowl pick. They are 2-1 so far this year. Although they're 2-1, both their wins have been really weird. Like they overtime win versus the Rams where they felt like they probably should have lost. And then even last week, they beat the Cardinals in a game where I thought Arizona kind of played a little bit better in some areas. If Jared Goff's interception doesn't get called back in that game, we could be looking at a very different outcome here. But I still think Detroit is, in my opinion right now, with everything going on, the best team in the NFC. Going up against a 3-0 Seahawks team that, I'm going to be straight up honest, I just think they've had a weak schedule, and that's a big reason why they're 3-0. I've watched 2 full Seahawks games. I watched the whole of that Broncos game in week 1, and I watched all of the Patriots game in week 2. I'm not totally impressed with them. I think that part of the reason people are hyping the defense up, they've played so far Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett, and Skylar Thompson. They beat a Dolphins team that's banged up with a backup quarterback. I just don't like the Seahawks team. I really don't. I'm not trying to say they're not a good team. I don't think they're as good as their record shows. Like 3-0, I think it's more to do with their schedule and who they've played. This is the toughest team by far, and I think that increase in toughness, going from the 3 quarterbacks they played to Jared Goff and the Lions, and although they haven't looked the best to start the year off with, this is a really stacked squad here in Detroit. The Seahawks also now dealing with some injuries in the offensive line, which obviously their offensive line wasn't great to begin with. Some injuries across the board there for Seattle. So I don't know. And the Lions 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 games as a favorite here. It's hard for me to go ahead and take the Seahawks team too seriously until now. If they go out and they beat the Lions in Detroit, I will absolutely go ahead and give them their roses and declare them the good team that they are. I just have a lot of question marks with Seattle. I have a lot of question marks. I've watched a lot of those games, and although they may have great moments, overall, I haven't been totally impressed with them. So I like the Lions here, -3. I think it's the smarter side to go ahead and side with. I think they're the better team on the road in Detroit. Tough spot for Seattle. Big jump in competition from what they faced thus far. I think the Lions go ahead and take that there. All right, guys, now moving on real quick before we close up the video to the parlay/teaser portion of today's video. Our first parlay we're going to go ahead and share with you guys goes back to that Commanders-Cardinals game. I told you I love that game a lot. I have a 3-leg parlay to share with you guys. So we're going Cardinals money line here. And again, I've already talked about in length why I like the Cardinals there. We have Cardinals money line. We have the Cardinals over 20.5 points. Again, Commanders defense, I think is pretty weak. The Arizona Cardinals should score a healthy amount of points in that matchup. 3 touchdowns seems very gettable for Arizona. And we're also going to add Kyler Murray over 224.5 passing yards, or in this case, the way it's formatted, 225 plus yards. He needs 225 passing yards to cash that prop. You parlay all 3 of those together, you get a parlay of plus 174. Again, if you're like me, if you think this Cardinals team's been pretty impressive, I think they win this game at home. I think 21 points should absolutely be gettable against this pretty weak Commanders defense. It's just hard for me to imagine seeing the success that these quarterbacks have had throwing. Even Daniel Jones had a really solid time throwing on this Commanders defense. It's hard to me to imagine that Kyler Murray can't get 225 passing yards in this game. The only thing that scares me is if they get up early, maybe they start running the ball a little bit more. But I do like the spot here. Really solid value, 3-leg parlay, plus 174 odds. All right, guys, our second parlay I'm going to go ahead and hand out is a 3-leg moneyline parlay, all of them being in the 1 o'clock window. Let's call it the early bird special, all the earlier games. 3-leg parlay, it's only money lines. We've got Jets moneyline -410. I didn't talk about that game because the 7.5 point spread, a little too high, a little too rich for my blood. But I do think the Jets should go ahead and walk away with the win in that one. Kind of a Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. I think they're going to try and have a little extra motivation to go ahead and win that one there. I do think the Jets are overall the better team. I think the market could overreact a little bit to the Broncos last week. And I think the Jets are obviously going to be the better team. We also have Bengals money line there. Again, I think it's a must win. I think if they don't win that game, I just don't know what to say. And then the Steelers money line again. I love the Steelers in that spot. Plus 221 for this 3-leg parlay. Really good value. All right, guys, our third parlay. This one's for fun. I think it's a moneyline parlay. I'm going to call it our full send parlay here. It's a 7-pick with just all money lines, all the teams I'm predicting to win in this week. We're not taking any. They're all pretty reasonable. They're all favorites. They're all the matches I think that they should. If any of these teams lose, it'd be a pretty big upset. We have Jets money line. Obviously, some of the same bets from the last one. We have Jets money line, Bengals money line. Also have Falcons money line, Niners, Cardinals, Chiefs, and Browns. All those money lines put together. Parlay a plus 1155. Like I said, just have a little fun here. A little big parlay to go ahead. I like all those teams to win. I have them all my pick'em pools and everything. All those teams to win. So for a plus 1155, sprinkle a little something on it. Looks pretty good to me. All right, guys, wrapping the show up very quickly with some teasers here. We did 2-1 on our teasers last week, so I'll go ahead and share a couple teasers with you guys today. Our first of 3 teasers we're going to go ahead and share with you guys for this week's slate. I've got Jets -8, which now with the tease, we're doing a 6.5 point teaser. It's -130 odds. With the 6.5 point tease, the Jets are now -1.5 versus the Broncos. Again, I think they absolutely win that game. I just don't like the 8 point spread. It keeps rising there. We'll take the Jets here at -1.5, and then the Arizona Cardinals, who are -3.5 straight up, we're not going to get them at +3. So +3 for the Cardinals, -1.5 for the Jets. Again, these are 2 teams I think are going to win outright and should win pretty handedly in both those games, but going to play it safe here with the teaser. Again, the Cardinals now, +3, Jets -1.5. Feels a lot better to go and take this one. -130 odds too. Pretty good. All right, our second teaser, guys, we have a 3-leg teaser. It's all totals. We really didn't target any totals in our normal picks, but because I didn't like a lot of the lines, but at the tease number, not as bad. So we're going to take this 6-point teaser here. We're going to take the Commanders Cardinals over, which is right now 49. This will take it down to 43. So now it's over 43. We have the Steelers Colts under here, which is at 40. It'll now be 46 when we put the tease in. And the Jaguars Texans under 45.5, which will now be at 51.5 when we put the tease in. You do all 3 of those, it's actually plus 160 odds. So pretty good numbers overall there. And then my third and final teaser, guys, I'm going to be doing this every week moving forward. It's what I'm calling my must-win tease. There is a 0% chance in my eyes that this pick doesn't hit. It's a 3-leg teaser, 10-point tease, minus 120 odds. We have the Vikings at their normal line plus 3. It's now Vikings plus 13. We have the Steelers where the original line is minus 2. They're now plus 8. And the Bengals at minus 4.5. Trying to do the math here real quick. I'm something of an idiot, guys. I'm sorry. I believe it's like plus 5.5 or plus 6, something along the lines there. But that is my must-win tease. I just don't see a way that those picks don't hit. And for minus 120 odds, it feels like a home run to me. So it's my must-win tease. So those are all my picks for this week's slate. And just to let you guys know that we'll be doing another giveaway here. If that teaser hits, comment must win. No, I gotta do something a little simple. We gotta do something simple. You guys can go ahead and comment. Yeah, let's do must win. Comment must win down below. Little audible there, a little quick thinking there. Let's do must win. Comment that down below in the comment section. If that must win tease hits, we're going to give one lucky commenter a free $15 Amazon gift card. How about that? So, minus 120 odds, you can go ahead and win some money on the tease and win some money with the free Amazon gift card giveaway if you are selected. Guys, that is it for me today. Thank you very much for watching. Again, another very long video. I apologize for that. We just had a lot of picks to get through in today's video. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, guys, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Let me know how you feel about these longer videos. I know, we're going to put the timestamps. You guys can go ahead and follow along. I know they're long. I know it's hard to get through them all, but there's a lot of picks to go ahead and share, a lot of value to go ahead and give out there. So, yeah, we'll be back next week with another episode of the NFL Oracle. Until then, hope you're all winners. Enjoy NFL Week 4, guys. We'll see you back here next week.